Hello and welcome back. I'm here today with Bev Jenner, who is a business development manager for SADDLERY Brands International, and they're the manufacturers of BATES, Arena and Wintec saddles. And today we're going to talk about the BATES saddles and the brand spanking new technology that is called the HART technology. So sit back, make yourselves a cup of tea and hopefully enjoy. So here's Bev, and she's going to talk to us today about BATES saddles. On social media, I asked if you had any questions for her, and we were bombarded with loads of really good questions. So we picked the best ones we can, and she's going to help us answer them today. So hopefully we'll find out loads about the BATES saddles and the HART technology within them. Hello, Bev. How are you doing?
Hi, Poppy. I'm doing really well, thank you. Thanks for having me here.
That's awesome. All right, it's my pleasure. If you see me at any point look down like this, it's because my laptop is down there and Bev's gorgeous little face is on my laptop. So I'm looking at her, looking at you, looking at her. Okay. So what would you want to do? Should we get started with some of the questions, or do you want to introduce yourself and say about your job? That might be a good start. Introduce yourself, say how long you've been working for SADDLERY Brands International and what kind of things you do.
Okay, so I've worked for SADDLERY Brands International now for almost 2 years. I look after saddle fitters across the majority of England, like North England. And what I'm here to do today is to answer some questions that came up regarding our systems. I think there are a lot of questions that people have about our systems, and my job today is to answer hopefully most of them. So Poppy, fire away with the first one, let's go.
So first question that's come up is, what is HART and why did you change it from CAIR? So we all think of BATES saddles from the olden days when we had the flocked version and the CAIR version, and now we hear about this HART technology and we don't seem to have the flocked version. So what is HART and why did you change it from CAIR?
Okay, so first of all of our saddles do still have CAIR panels within them. So that's one point to note. BATES saddles have been around for 84 years. 85 years, I can't do the quick maths, since 1934, which is when BATES saddles was launched originally in Australia, a long time ago. We pioneered adjustable saddles in 1975, so we've been doing adjustable saddles for an incredibly long time. And actually the easy change gullet system was introduced in 1999, so for 20 or so years. We've been obviously bringing that through. So since then, in 2001, the CAIR cushion system was introduced, and then the riser system was introduced in 2007. So we have the gullet, changeable gullet system, we have the CAIR panels, we have the easy change riser system, and that's a whole lot of systems that all do it, that work together to do a fantastic job to make the saddle really customizable for fit and really comfortable for the horse. So we've basically brought in our brand HART, horse and rider technology, to encompass all of those things together. So only a saddle that has all of those systems will have the HART badge on it.
So HART basically doesn't just refer to the air panels in the way that CAIR did. It refers to the air panels, the adjustability at the front, the
easy change riser system,
everything.
Everything. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's really important to note is, our saddles are not just about CAIR panels. It's about the fact that they are so adjustable and so customizable for fit, and obviously comfort is the main thing that we work towards with the design of our saddles and our system. So things have moved on a phenomenal amount since 1975 in the first adjustable gullet, that's for sure.
Yeah, phenomenal amount. I think a common misperception is that CAIR is HART, HART is CAIR. So people presume that they're the same thing, but actually, like you say, it's an amalgamation of loads of different things that you've been kind of pioneering and moving forward with. So it's not just the airbags, it's everything else that's within the saddle. So if the saddle has a HART badge on it, it comes with all of that. And these are all things that I can put links to in the description if you're interested in finding out more about HART, H-A-R-T technology. A very, very, very popular question that we were asked by probably 50% of the people that asked is, why CAIR and not flock? Because we all remember in the olden days, again, BATES saddles used to have a flocked version and a CAIR version, and now we just have the CAIR version. So why CAIR, not flocked? Over to you, Bev.
CAIR over flocking, that's because we absolutely believe it's the most comfortable thing to put on your horse's back. I do think that there is a lot of misunderstanding about CAIR panels, and obviously one of the things that I need to do today is explain exactly what they are and how CAIR works in comparison to flock. Now, flock will work for some horses. Historically, I've ridden in flock saddles, I've ridden in saddles with a foam panel, all sorts of different combinations. But now I absolutely won't ride my horse in anything else but a CAIR panel. I think they're just phenomenal. I mean, I don't know if anybody's ever seen a CAIR cushion. I've got one here to show you. Poppy, I know that when you came and had a look at our saddles, you had a feel of the CAIR cushion and how that works. So the CAIR cushions are super soft, super squidgy, and these sit inside the panel. So it makes the panel super comfortable on the horse's back, reducing the risk of pressure points, which is something that can happen with a flock saddle. You know, flock saddles are comfortable for horses provided they're maintained well and maintained correctly. And I think over time, obviously with flocking, it can become compacted. I mean, Poppy, we've seen some of your videos online where you've pulled out all sorts of weird and wonderful bits of flock that have come out of there. And
yes, definitely.
Obviously, those different consistencies can potentially build up and cause a pressure point. The way that the air moves around with the panel, and the best way to demo this is to actually take this out of the demo panel and stand on it. And I'm not going to do that on this video, but if you were to ever come to Badminton or Burley or anything like that, come to our stand and I'll gladly demo it for you. Basically, you stand on it and you can move your weight forwards and backwards, and it completely distributes the pressure evenly. So you can feel that.
I've done this, by the way. When I came to visit Bev, I did this and I was really scared to tread on it. She's like, tread on it. And I was like, I've put on a lot of weight over lockdown, so I was extra scared to tread on it. And I thought it's going to pop. It was definitely going to pop. And she's like, no, it won't pop. And I was like, it definitely will pop. I'm heavy. And actually, number one, obviously it didn't pop. But number two, you can really feel it. So it's a really good thing to do. So if you are at a show where Bates are at for their saddles, go and see Bev and tread on one of her airbags.
It's definitely good. It's definitely the best way to get a feel for actually the way that the air moves. I think one other thing as well, for me, which is why I particularly love CAIR over flock on my horse, is that muscle development through the back. You know, air will move into the space, and as the muscle develops through, it's not being blocked by anything hard sitting down, pressing on that surface area of the horse's back. The horse's back muscles are actually allowed and able to develop under there. So if you've got a horse that's a bit asymmetrical, which let's face it, most of our horses are in some way, this works. You can work with your saddle fitter really carefully to improve that situation and to make the back more symmetrical.
Excellent. So what you're saying is that, in a sense, like the air, I wish I had something here to show, but like if you imagine like if we put a balloon over something and there was a gap, the air would kind of naturally fill that gap. So that's what you're saying. Whereas something that didn't have the same amount of dynamicness, movement in it, wouldn't fill the gap in the same way.
Exactly, and that's exactly right, Poppy. And the same way to think about this as well is not only have you got, so I brought my tree with me for this. So if you've got the tree and the panel that sits there, you've then got obviously the outside of the panel that sits on there as well. So the saddle's super supported and super comfortable. We've got that the way around. Yeah. You can see how that sits there like that as you're riding. Yeah. You may move around in the saddle. It's very hard to demo on the camera. But the CAIR cushion will basically absorb all of that shock. I do believe it's one of those things where it's got to be seen to be believed.
I think it's really important to mention at this point that a lot of the questions that we had about the CAIR and about the air versus flocks, a lot of them were saying that they've had saddle fitters out that have said, you know, air's bad, flock's good. And I have to, I'm going to confess, and please don't hate me here, Bev, but I was one of those saddle fitters. For us as saddle fitters, we really like to go to a saddle and we really like to be able to make it fit to the best of our ability. And we are traditionally trained that flock is the way to do that, because you can, if you have a saddle that drops forward a little bit, you can lift it at the front, or you can lift it at the right, or you can lift it at the back, and you know, you can add flocking where you need flocking to give a little bit of lift. Until recently, I think that saddles that had air panels on suffered a little bit of bad press, and admittedly a lot of that is from saddle fitters because we were not convinced. And I think this is a really good time to mention that I was one of those people, because I think since you've changed over to this new HART technology, and since we have all the risers, and I'm sure Bev will go into in a minute, some of the risers, you know, we've got these little risers that we can put in, and we can almost shim the tree up, so we can use risers a little bit like we would use flock. So we can lift the front, and we can lift the back, we can lift the side, and they're not just normal risers. We have different shaped risers. We can do loads with the risers. So I do think that for anyone out there that has been previously had their saddle fitter tell them that flock is the way to go, or I get a lot of people ask me to take airbags out of saddles and replace them with flock. I think that nowadays that actually isn't the same issue as it used to be in the olden days. I do think that that these changes that have been made have made a huge difference, and I would say to anybody who's previously been a bit more about air, to give it a go and to have a look at these new saddles, which I never thought I would say, but hey, I said it.
I think one thing that I really wanted to mention as well about our system and how adjustable and versatile they are for fit is that they're also so symmetrical, you know, because our saddles, the way that our saddles are manufactured and the way that our panels are put together and the way that you're using a riser and set gullets and a riser to adjust the fit of the saddle, it's so symmetrical. Obviously you can fit it asymmetrically if your saddle fitter needs to do that for a certain reason, but everything is so symmetrical that there's very, very little room for error. Whereas obviously when you're working with a flock panel or a flock saddle, you know, that's a much more of a manual job. It's a malleable product that you're putting in there. And there's a lot more variation in the way that would settle, whereas our panels are just what they are. And
it does rely on our stock saddles. You know, when we lift, you know, when we put, I'll often think, I need to put some in both front gussets, and I'll get my flock and I'll think, I need to put the same amount in each side, and I put it in, and doesn't feel like I've put the same amount on that left side, so I'll put a little bit more on the left side. But and it's to do with feel, and you know, we're all trained, and this is our job, and this is what we do. But it does take that element of like that. I don't know what the word is, but it does take that element of kind of variation out of it, doesn't it? You're putting onto a computer-aided designed tree, which we know is straight, and we're putting in risers, which we know are all exactly the same size. So we know that we're being as symmetrical as it's possible to be, and we're not relying on feel in such a way.
I just feel like it's less subjective and it can be more accurate.
Subjective, that's the word, much less subjective, The
other thing also with ours is when you're looking at changing the saddle, or if you were to get a different horse, or you to even sell the saddle, or your saddle needs completely altering and adjusting, it can be reverted back to factory settings in a few minutes of taking out the risers back. So I think that's another bonus as well, and where it stands aside from a flock saddle, because obviously if you're over flock saddle or anything like that, you just can't take it back to factory settings, and I think that's where another bonus comes in with the design of our system.
So we've had a question from Martika, which is, are all BATES saddles built on the same tree? Because I remember that when I was very first into saddle fitting, the BATES saddles were renowned for being on what we would call a banana shaped tree, and everyone and they fitted things with kind of a rounded backs. Now I know the answer to this question is most definitely a no, because I have seen so many different changes to the trees, and they are all now very different. So can you explain a little bit about the BATES trees, please?
Absolutely. Yep. So obviously we don't just have one tree, we do have different trees across the range. And obviously we also have different conformational designs as well, such as for a high wither or for a wide horse. And obviously we also have the round cantle, square cantle, you know, there's contact jump. There's so many, like it's no point kind of reeling them all off. They're not all on the same trees, the answer to your question, Poppy. They're on what we call the Elastiflex tree. And I've got my little demo tree here, which is actually a tree from a all-purpose round cantle all-purpose saddle. It's
and is that the foam? So for people that don't know, that white stuff on the top is like the boingy soft bit that sits under your bottom.
And it is super squidgy as well. It's ever so comfortable. So that's what we've got on top, and then the Elastiflex tree is under here. So you can see under here we don't have, like you would have in your traditional saddles, like rails. It's one piece, our tree, and it's got a lot of give in it. So I'm just going to try and show you how flexible. Obviously they need to be flexible for us to be able to adjust the gullet. Obviously, and I'll show you in a minute how variable these are. But as you adjust the gullet, say for example we were widening this, so to the extreme this would go to an extra wide, which would be a wide gullet. You're not just adjusting the front of the saddle and the points at the front of the saddle, you're also adjusting, you're also adjusting it to the waist. So we're widening the saddle through here, which actually I did spot one of the questions that came up.
Yes, I'm going to pop that one up, because that does link really nicely to another question, which I'm just going to pop up on the screen, which is from Kerry, which is, why do your saddles only adjust at the front? Now I'm going to quickly pop in here as a saddle fitter and say this is not just BATES. So any saddle with adjustable gullet bar, any saddle that's adjusted on a machine, that's widened, anything like that, they are adjusted from the front. So it's the front that we change the shape, and for a number of reasons, and I'm sure that Bev is going to show us like how far back the adjustment goes, and it does actually go further back than you realise on these Bates saddles. But also we have to remember that the saddles are designed for horses that change shape a little bit at the front. That's why we have these adjustable saddles. So everything else, like the back shape through their back and the shape of their back from front to back and around the back of their ribs, that's the different trees. So like Bev was talking earlier, there's always different tree types. So we need to get the tree that fits the horse, and then it's the adjustment at the front that happens as the horse gains or loses a little bit of muscle or a little bit of weight. That's what the adjustment is for. And I'm going to pass you over to Bev, who's going to talk a little bit about this as well.
So we've got the gullet at the front of the the adjustable gullet at the front of the tree, and as that widens, it actually widens through the length of the saddle. So we're also, it's difficult to see on here, but angle, it will also
all the way to like what we would call the twist or the waist of the saddle, yeah?
The waist of the saddle, which is kind of the centre.
Yeah.
When we get to the rear of the saddle, yeah, you're absolutely right. Obviously, adjusting the gullet is not going to adjust anything here at the back. But one thing I will just mention, which is kind of something I think a lot of people kind of get a little bit confused about, is the way that the riser system works in conjunction with the tree. So it's not just something that we use instead of flocking, which is traditionally what your saddle fitter would do to alter the shape and the fit of the panel. We also use the risers to manipulate the profile of the tree on the horse's back. So the best way for me to demo this to you probably would be for us to talk about a curvy shaped horse that might need a little bit more shape through the back. Now if we put this on the horse, obviously when it's got its natural saddle rather than just the tree, we're going to put this on the horse, and we might see that we've got a little bit of bridging going on in the centre of the saddle. What your saddle fitter would do typically is adjust the front of this, so we're making sure that we've got the correct width at the front of the saddle, and then we would use the riser. This is the centre riser, so we have like front, rear and centre, and these would sit in the centre and actually manipulate the profile of the tree, making it a little bit more of a curved shape. Why do we only adjust at the front? Are all the trees different? It all pulls together because our systems all work together to find the most comfortable fit for the horse.
So we have the adjustment at the front, and we've just discovered now that goes away to the waist of the saddle, so the waist or the twist, that little narrow bit that sits between the top of your thighs. So it does go slightly further back than people realise, and then also they've got all that adjustability with your riser pads and with the fact that you have different trees. Loads going on. So in theory then, just thinking about this now, so if we were to go to see a horse that had, for example, lost a lot of muscle, he'd had an injury, he'd been off work, and he'd dropped weight at the front, and so he'd narrowed it to fit him, but his back profile, so like the shape of his back had gone from being quite flat to a little bit more kind of A-frame, what we would call A-frame, when their spine sort of sticks up a little bit more. So we could, as saddle fitters, then use the shim system to adjust the shape of the panel at the back. So therefore we don't need it to be adjustable at the back, because we can use the shims to change that shape if he was to drop muscle at the back, for example.
Exactly, the risers would give you more support at the back of the saddle where the horse needs it. And they're of varying thicknesses. They go up in increments of 4 mil. So this is the thinnest. This is a front riser. It's really hard to show on the camera. Super thin, 4 mil is like super accurate.
I've got 8 mil here.
You've got an 8 there, and then I'm going to top you there, and that's a 16 mil. So you can see that's an enormous.
Quite hefty, the 16 mils, aren't they?
Yeah, you can lift it hugely behind. So again, if you've got a horse that just needs, a deeper panel at the back, more support behind the saddle, your saddle fitter will be able to fit the riser system accordingly to the level of support that the horse needs. There isn't enough understanding out there of how beneficial the riser system actually is and how it works perfectly.
Even for me as a saddle fitter, we're kind of bombarded with all new technology everywhere all the time, and sometimes it can be a little bit like, whoa.
There's a lot of misunderstanding with how our risers work, making the adjustments to the saddles. I mean, I've seen saddles, and I believe you have as well, where you will open a CAIR panel and find flocking has been put in there. The risers are there to do that job for you. You don't need to do that when you've got the tools available to you to be able to make easier, more accurate and symmetrical adjustments.
So on the subject of gullet bars and adjusting the gullet bars, one of the most common questions that I'm asked, and I've popped it up here on the screen, and this particular version is by a girl called Kendra, but I get asked this all the time, and if you pop along to any of the YouTube videos you'll see on there, it's always asked, and I think this is a really important question that really needs addressing, because I think that people have got their knickers in a twist. I'm not saying that. I think basically what happened is, I think somebody somewhere once did a vlog or a blog or something about the shape of your gullet bars and how they cause pressure points, and I think people have jumped onto that because nobody wants to cause pressure on their horse. Everybody wants to do the best by their horse. For some reason this has gone around, and I feel like it needs addressing. So Kendra, what do you think about the shape of their gullet bars there being bates? I've heard they have a slight kink to them and they can cause pressure points.
Okay, so first of all, I'll just, for anybody who's not aware of the shape of our gullets or hasn't seen this before in the gullets, this is a narrow gullet, so this is the narrowest our gullet bars will go. And you see, this is where we're talking about this kind of angle here. So we've got the rounded top, and then the gullet bar kind of kicks out in this way. So this is the area here that Kendra's raising here. She's concerned about pressure point at this point of the bar. This is not in contact with the horse's back at all. If you think about where the gullet bar sits on the horse, this is in the channel of the tree. We pioneered adjustable gullets in our saddles. These have been designed and, you know, with a huge attention to detail. So I honestly say it's not something to be concerned about. The way that it sits in the tree, this is within the channel of the tree, and it's difficult to do it with the camera being backwards. From here, it happens all the time. Very hard. So from the angle, from this point where Kendra is concerned about, this is actually where the panel begins. So this area is not in contact with the horse's back, and there's a reason why we've designed our gullets this way. And the main reason for it is actually strength and stability of the gullet and the tree. So I'll just get my tree again. You can see here at the front of the saddle, this is where the gullet sits in the front of the saddle. And from here upwards is in the channel here. So it's not in contact with the horse's back at all until you get to the point where the panel begins. And obviously the panel's there with the care cushion, you know, eliminating any unnecessary pressure points if there were so. But the way that our gullets are designed, the exact opposite of that problem.
And it makes so much sense when you sit like that within the tree, that actually that shape there is so far removed from the horse's back. It's up in the channel, and then you have the panels anyway lower down, and I think people don't realise how short the bars actually are within the tree.
Yeah, the bars are not enormous.
The bars are not enormous, and actually you can see there with Bev's tree there, you have a bit of what's called the point coming out from below the bar, and that then is what gives that kind of stability at the front of the tree, is that point that comes out from below the bar. Incidentally, new points on these trees, because the old points used to be like just attached and wrap around and sometimes break off. No breaking off on these trees.
Yeah, so that's
the point. So that's where the stability comes, and that is unaffected. Where the point sits is unaffected by what's going on in the gullet bar.
So another thing to note is at the front of the tree, this area is under a huge amount of pressure when you're riding, and so obviously what we needed to do was make sure that our gullet bars were designed to withstand that extra force and pressure. So we've got the ridge here. And that is there, you know, that's there for a reason. That's there for support and stability of this area of the saddle that gets basically an enormous hammering when we're riding around. That's where all our weights go. And obviously we don't want our gullets to warp and to bend in overuse, or, you know, over the course of the years. We want these to stand the test of time.
And I hope that makes sense, and I hope that answers a lot of questions about this, because it is something that I get asked an awful lot, and I do think it's just based on a couple of things going around the internet which were based on not fact. You can see there quite clearly that the gullet bar, how it sits within the tree, that shape of it is not going to make any contact with the horse, and therefore any pressure points on the horse. If you've got any questions or queries or anything about that, then please comment below, because I can put some more questions to Bev in the future, and I'm sure that Bates will be really happy to answer any questions you have on this.
I thought this might be a good time for me to quickly just show, for viewers out there who are not overly familiar with variations that our saddles can go from and to. So I thought I'd use my gullet gauge to do this. So in our standard tree saddles, we can go from a narrow, which is yellow, through to an extra wide, which is the white gullet bar. So we can go literally, if I can angle this, that's narrow. We can see this shape here. This is the narrow gullet bar, and then if we go all the way to extra wide, the variation is enormous. If we need to go wider than an extra wide, we would then look to fit your horse with a wide model on one of our wide trees to suit those kind of wider, broader combinations. So we're looking at, they start at extra wide and they go all the way to 4x wide, which is super wide. And in fact, I'm yet to see a horse be fitted with a 4x wide in person. You did one, did you? You need to send me a picture.
And it literally looked like the saddle. I looked like I'd run the gullet bar over in my car repeatedly. The saddle was like flat. It was one of those horses that, you know, has like an inverted wither, like the wither is lower than the shoulders and the whole thing. Yeah,
you would think you need kind of like, traditionally you would look at maybe like a hoop head type shape. That would be your kind of go-to point if you were kind of from the textbook. Obviously, if we're looking at a gullet bar that can go this wide or extra wide,
On the subject of the extra super wide, chunky, wide ones, there was a question about like hoop trees and why you guys don't have a hoop tree. So for anyone that doesn't know, a hoop tree, it's difficult to explain. Someone told me that they're called hoop trees because they look like a hula hoop cut in half, and I think they mean a hula hoop that goes around your waist, not a crisp, because
not crisp.
Although my tummy's rumbling now, I'm thinking hula hoops. So basically, a hoop tree. So if you think of the front of a tree, they are this shape. A hoop tree is more this shape. So you would think of a hoop tree as like an upside down U instead of an upside down V. It's a really simplistic way of putting it. However, I think people are very much under the misunderstanding that saddles are either a hoop tree or not a hoop tree. They're either designed for cobs or they're not designed for cobs. But there's actually a huge variation within this shape and everything in between. So I think the question about, you know, this tree is not a hoop tree, therefore it's not going to fit cobs, is not true. And it doesn't mean it's going to fit all cobs. We can't say that any saddler is going to fit all cobs in the same way that we can't say a hoop tree is going to fit all cobs or all wide horses. There are different trees for different horses and different shapes, etc., etc. But the fact that these saddles go so very wide, and they do go very wide, and I have seen them used successfully on very wide types. What do you think? Do you think that you guys need a hoop tree, or what?
To be honest, I don't think we need to address that as an issue. I think, you know, horses for courses, you know, some saddles work for some and others will work for others. I have a lot of success with our wide fitting saddles for the wide horses. They fit nice and closely. They're really stable. They offer the saddle and the rider a lot of support. And that's not hindered by the shape of the front of the tree at all. So I don't think that a hoop head is necessarily something that we would need to consider in design. Obviously, if that was to be, you know, a huge amount of feedback that was coming through from the market and that it was needed, then of course we would address that.
I'm thinking about it. I can't think of any adjustable saddles, or like adjustable gullet saddles that are in any way hoop shaped.
No, I can't work out how it would work actually.
I don't think it would work. So I think actually, you know, you maybe need to accept that this is, you know, you've you know, if you want to go for that adjustable option, then you can't get the hoop tree. And it doesn't mean that your saddle can't fit your horse, because again, like not all wide horses have to have a hoop tree, etc. It's a very commonly overused term at the moment. I go out to a lot of horses that people say, "Oh, I think I need a hoop tree," and you look at their high withered thoroughbred and you think, I think you got this wrong. It's a very overused term at the moment, and there is definitely a place in the market for that hooped tree and that very kind of flat-headed tree, but it definitely doesn't encompass all wide horses, I would say. Do you think that's fair to say?
I would agree with that, yeah, absolutely.
On the subject, very quickly, of wide trees, somebody else did ask about, Julie asked, why don't they make a wide pony saddle? And they being you, Bates.
Why don't we make a wide pony saddle? That is something that we've had quite a lot of feedback on, and that has been taken on board. Watch this space.
So currently your pony saddles go up to an extra wide though, don't they?
They go up to the extra wide, so that's just in the up to the white gullet. If you were going for double X wide up, at the moment we don't have a pony saddle to fit that shape.
But that is in the pipeline.
Potentially. I'm not making any promises, but it is something that we've been asked for a lot, and so we'll see.
So Kate has asked us, is it just the gullet bar that's adjustable on the Bates saddles? And I think I'm going to know the answer to this, because I know that it's not just a gullet bar. We've also got these little risers and other things that we can do. But is there anything else that we can adjust on the Bates saddles?
Absolutely. So the items that we've looked at so far obviously means that we can adjust the saddle to fit the horse. So perfectly adjustable for the horse. Now we can actually look at making the saddle work for the rider. So on a lot of our Bates saddles, not on all models, but on a large number of our Bates saddles, we have the adjustable stirrup bar. Okay, so one of my favourite things to adjust on our saddles, on a lot of our Bates saddles, is the adjustable stirrup bar. So you can see here this, we lift this up, which it is now lifted up, and then you can move them. There's 3 positions that you can move the stirrup bar into. and that adjusts the position. Adjusts the position of the rider's leg.
Yep. And so, what benefit would that be then for the rider?
So, for example, if you're a bit like me and you've got shorter legs, you might need to, especially in a dressage saddle, or even actually in the jump, to move the stirrup bar further forward. So we use the movable stirrup bar and the combination of that and the adjustable block to fit the saddle perfectly for your leg position. You might find that a person with a longer leg or a more established dressage rider would prefer their leg to be a bit further back, more in line. You can put the stirrup bar back to position number 3. So we've got a huge amount of variation with regards to the position of your leg, and then with the support of your leg, depending on which model you're looking at, we have external blocks as well on the BATES Advantage jump saddle, which is our monoflap.
So your external blocks are adjustable as well, because that's a
absolutely So I'll show you on here. So can you see?
Yeah, I can see there's little screws in there.
You can see the screws. So we loosen the screws here, and what that allows us to do is to rotate
the block.
So we can move the stirrup bar and we can move the block to find the option.
We're all quite used to like adjustable knee blocks, but on Velcro underneath, so not the surface blocks, but the underneath blocks. So having these surface blocks adjustable is a really good idea, isn't it?
It's a game changer, Poppy. To be honest, we have the external block on the Advanta monoflap, the BATES Artiste dressage saddle, which is our new dressage saddle that we launched most recently, and on the BATES Innova, which is our monoflap dressage saddle, which has an external block, which I believe is the saddle that you liked when you came over to have a
It's the saddle that I like the best. And I also have a question about the Artiste saddle coming up, so that was quite handily put in there. Because I think as a saddle fitter, that one of the problems that we have when we do the external blocks, and like everyone loves it, certainly on the dressage saddles, people love those external blocks that really lock their leg in place. I find it really tricky because you sometimes have someone going into their first dressage saddle, for example, and their leg position is very different than from when they're a bit more established as a dressage rider. So I have to almost kind of predict what I think how their leg is going to sit in the future. So that's really, for me, as a saddle fitter, that is a game changer, that movable external block, because it means that you can angle it according to what position their leg is in at the time, and then that adjustable stirrup bar changing their seat too. So I think that's really cool.
Honestly, the stirrup bar is fantastic. I mean, I've spent most of my life riding in a jump saddle, and really wants to get into riding in a dressage saddle, and found it really painful actually. So having the ability to be able to move my stirrup bar to the front, and then slowly and support with the leg, and then slowly bring it back. I'm now on position number 2 on the stirrup bar, so I'm getting there.
All your legs are growing.
Hopefully it's that, but I don't think so.
So talking about dressage saddles and adjustable blocks, and we were saying about the Artiste, one of the questions, let me find it, that we have had is from Sarah. What is the difference between the mono and the new Artiste?
Okay, so
I will try, when I'm editing this, I will try to put some photos of both of them up on screen so we can see them physically. But so talk me through the other differences.
So I presume Sarah's referring to the Innova monoflap, which is the monoflap dressage saddle that we was our only monoflap dressage saddle that we previously. Which
I love, by the way.
It is a beautiful saddle, it really is. So we're going to have a look at the pictures that Poppy's going to put on the screen for us. Really hope you can do it. So on the Innova dressage saddle, you've got the external block, and again that's movable. With the you've got the adjustable stirrup bar, and it's a really, really comfortable, lovely, beautiful monoflap dressage saddle. Relatively close contact because your monoflap rather than double flap, which obviously a lot of dressage riders prefer, and then came in the Artiste. Now for me, I absolutely love the Artiste. I think it's a beautiful addition to our range. It's got the external block like the mono, but it's shaped. It's more of a shaped block. So it's actually on this picture behind.
I was going to say, is that one behind you there?
Yeah. So it's got a little bit more of a shape to it, and it is the saddle that I've got here with me. You can see look at the size of that block. And it's so squidgy as well, like it's super soft. It's ever so soft, but it still supports you, And again, that can be moved. It's ever so nice. But one other thing to spot here, the difference, see how the flaps cut away at the bottom?
Yep, so shaped.
It's shaped at the back, at the back of the flap. So again, you can get a real closer feel on your leg. It's got the adjustable stirrup bar. Obviously, it's got all of our systems in there. It's on a Synergy panel. it sits closer than that of the Innova does. So if you're looking for a saddle that really does give you real close contact feel and an amazing connection with the horse, I think that the Artiste would definitely be worth one. Test riding it, because it's super comfortable. One other thing maybe to mention, especially if your horse is a bit wider, the twist is much more comfortable to sit on, I find personally, but maybe that's because I've got short legs and a wide horse, I don't know.
I do see a lot of people who really want that narrower twist. Certainly people that, you know, are quite narrow hipped or quite slim or quite little or have quite short legs. People tend to like that sort of narrower twist, because you do find if you have short legs and a wider twist, your little legs can stick out a little bit like you're on a Thelwell pony. That
can happen to me sometimes. It has been known.
I can imagine you look a bit like a Thelwell.
Thanks very much. But I think, to be honest, test ride one.
On the subject of favourite saddles that I like, I'm going to ask you my questions now. What's your favourite bait saddle?
My favourite bait saddle, it absolutely hands down has to be the Advanta base, Advanta jump saddle monoflap. It's just beautiful. It's so comfortable. It's so close fitting. It's just so lovely. It's got the looks. It's the Lux leather, so it's super grippy. We were able to adjust the knee block and the stirrup bar to give me some real stability for jumping, and it's just gorgeous. And my favourite version of that is the Duo, which is it's a brown saddle, but the blocks are black.
I think I've seen that.
I can change my bridle. Yeah, so I can have one colour or the other.
And then, is that the one that comes in the deeper seat and the shallow seat?
That's just the monoflap, which is like an open seat. So the one that you can have with the deep seat and the more flat seat is the base elevation.
Because that's also a really nice saddle, actually. So I like that one in the deeper seated version, because again, I don't really jump at all. I like a bit of a deeper seat personally. You can do different seated versions, so you can have a deeper seat and a shallower seat and everything like that.
And they're super comfortable. They're really good if you're kind of like doing a little bit of jumping, maybe a bit of hacking.
And hunting and things like that, where you're going to be sitting on your bum but equally want to be able to leap big fences. My favourite when I came, you won't be surprised here, was the Victrix one, and that's the one that comes in funky colours. So I'm going to put some pictures of that up, because I might even put a link to some of the photos, because they come in brilliant colour combinations, including one that's got like a tealy aqua colour, which I love. On the subject of funking up, I do think that Bates they've managed to kind of really jazz things up, but they've maintained that really kind of classy feel. You know, the little cute little buckle on the stirrup keeper and everything like that. The whole thing, all of the saddles look classy now. I think they're nice.
I mean, literally the choices are endless, and I think that it's one of those things. If you are thinking about looking at a saddle, have a look at everything that's available. Don't just pigeonhole what you think you need because somebody's recommended it to you. Really do research, because like you said, we do a deeper seat and a flatter seat jump saddle in the same model, and I don't think that maybe everybody in the world is going to know that. You need to speak to a saddle fitter about these kinds of things.
Exactly, and actually a lot of saddle fitters that do the bait saddles are more than happy to bring some out for you to try them and try a few different ones and trial them, because you do need to ride in them and feel them and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we offer, we do like a test ride thing, so obviously if anybody wants to try, organise that. And that's really good. It's like joyriding in saddles. It's fantastic.
Exactly.
It's definitely worth doing. You'd do that if you were buying a car, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. Oh, no, I don't. I once went on a lunch break, and I was walking past a car garage, and I was bored because I was like, I don't know, couldn't find a sandwich shop or something, and I had literally had half an hour for lunch in between a couple of meetings, and I walked past a car garage and bought a car by mistake. I didn't even mean to buy a car. I was walking past, and I must have kind of like hovered too long by a car. Bought it by mistake. Didn't even like it. And then I blew it up 3 months later because I didn't put oil in it.
Remind me never to go car shopping with you, Poppy.
Don't ever go car shopping with me. Anything else that you want to say about bait saddles before we wind this up?
I've not really, to be honest. I think we've covered. Our systems. We've covered the way that everything works, and I just think that although our saddles are adjustable, and obviously there's a lot that you can do with them. I fully recommend that you do that with your saddle fitter, and that you have a saddle fitter make these changes for you.
And I'll say the same. I think that this is what we do, this is our job, and we know what fits you, we know what works for you and your horse, and we're the people that can make adjustments and make them safely as well, and make sure that you and your horse are comfortable. I also want to say that I think is a really important thing is that I think that people really need to think about baits a little bit differently than perhaps they have been. There's so many different ranges that the HART system is so very different from previous models. The leather choices are gorgeous, they're lovely, there's different models, different trees, different riser things, everything. There's so much difference now. So I think that if you haven't considered a baits because you've got in your head what they were previously, then consider them and look at them and try one out, because they are very, very, very different. And I appreciate this sounds very much like an advert, and it's not an advert genuinely. Just try them, because you might be quite surprised. That's my 2 pence worth. So I'd like to say a hugest, massivest, mahoosive thank you to Bev for coming along and answering all of our questions. If you have any more questions, then please feel free to pop them in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe and all of that malarkey. Hopefully we'll be making some other videos with Bev in the future where we can talk about some of the other saddles and maybe look a little bit more closely at some other things that we've looked at today. So if you're interested in that, then please let me know what sort of things you would like to see. In the meantime, take care, stay safe, lots and lots of love.